Awesome. So, welcome everyone. Excited to have a few live viewers today, which is kind of a new thing for us this week. So, excited to have folks on to hear about the Soul of Service, our City of Hartford Black Leadership interview series. Really, really happy to be here with the director of, and Kristina, correct me. Hold on one second. I'm going to do it. The director of Children, Families, Youth, and Recreation for the City of Service interviews today. Children, Families, Youth, and Recreation, Director Kristina Baldwin.
So
Hey.
close.
So,
Family, children, youth, and recreation.
directors of
Got it. You got
Children, Families, Youth, and Recreation.
families.
I gotta like tat it somewhere because I always say it wrong. I always invert it. A big title for a really big job. And so we are really honored that you would take the time to have a conversation with us this afternoon um, for our Black History Month leadership series. So I've had an opportunity to talk to several leaders before you, all of them dynamic and brilliant and just willing to share with us what brought them here and what keeps them here. And so if you could just, to get us started, tell me a little bit about your hometown, your family of origin, like how did you all end up in Hartford? We would love to hear that.
Thank you so much, Director Taylor. I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for inviting me. It's such an honor to be here. And I'm so thrilled to be in company with my other colleagues from across the city. So again, thank you. So as you stated, my name is Kristina Baldwin. I am the director for the City of Hartford's Department of Families, Children, Youth, and Recreation. Yes, a very long name. For a very important department in the city, as they all are. So I am. I've been working here for the City of Hartford for this is my 10th year. So this year actually makes year 10 for me. I know it goes by super fast, but I think that's just because the nature of the work that we do is so important for the community. I am originally from Bloomfield, Connecticut. So I was born and raised in Bloomfield, Connecticut. My parents still reside there. And we came by way of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So I have still a lot of family in Philadelphia, come from a large family on both sides. And so Philadelphia is and always will be home to my family as well. I have been working in Hartford for over 20 years now. So after I graduated college, I decided to make my impact in Hartford and obviously knew a lot about Hartford by being in the town right next door. But just fell in love with the city and continue to love the city and have really decided to dedicate my professional lifelong career to the people, families, children, and youth in Hartford.
Awesome. So Bloomfield, can you tell us what schools you went to in Bloomfield, or did you go to schools in Bloomfield? Curious.
Yeah, actually, so I did my childhood years, so like preschool, actually elementary school, at Renbrook School, which is an independent school in West Hartford. So I was there for about 11 years. And then after that, my parents were like, where would you like to go to school for high school? And I immediately wanted to go to public school. I loved Renbrook, in the independent school educational opportunities that it offered, but I really did want also the experience of going to a public school. And so, unlike Hartford, there's only one high school in Bloomfield, and that was Bloomfield High School. So I attended Bloomfield High School and stayed in Bloomfield until I went to college at the University of Connecticut. So, high school was an absolutely wonderful experience for me. And I went through both a lot of challenges as a young person, but also a lot of opportunities. And I think that is what really grounded me in the decision to make a career out of working for and serving young people because of what I went through as a child and what I experienced and really felt that I could lend that experience to the youth that I serve. But I will say in the trajectory of my career, I've actually ended up gaining so much more from the young people than I could ever have dreamed of giving them.
Oh, I love that. And I forgive you, Warhawk, from as a beaver. You are forgiven. We embrace you now here. Um, and I have the pleasure of knowing your mother and knowing the type of work that she does. She's also a fellow includer. And so I think that it's really wonderful that your parents gave you the agency to be able to kind of chart your own path for high school. Because who knows, maybe you wouldn't have ended up in this work and ended up here with us. So really, really shout out to the chief includer, Mama
Yeah,
and company for giving you
my
the
very
agency.
first educator. So
Yes,
yes, I
yes.
appreciate that. And she has continued, being in the cause for educational and, inclusive opportunities for our people. So definitely.
Wonderful. And connections to Philly. Philly is one of my favorite cities. Um, it's mostly about food, but
It is
and it feels kind of like Hartford in a
absolutely.
lot of ways too. So
I
yeah.
definitely have to go back there to find a good hoagie, but yes.
Ishkabibbles, the gremlins, chicken
Right.
cheesesteaks, yes, okay. So you said you've been working for the city for a decade. What attracted you? You talked a little bit about like in your youth, what attracted you to this type of work and working with young people, but what attracted you to doing this type of work at the City of Hartford in particular?
Yeah, sure. So, previous to joining the City of Hartford, I worked in the nonprofit arena, both in Hartford and outside of Hartford. And so, doing that work, I was able to really establish and build relationships with colleagues in our joint quest to serve young people. But I think after doing sort of that work for so long, what really attracted me to this work in the city of Hartford was that it was another way to be able to serve our young people. So I do have a background in grant writing and management. So I did a lot of that in the nonprofit work, in the nonprofit field that I was in, really working to advocate for and to find resources for the young people that we serve. However, being in the city of Hartford in this role, a real attraction was that then I would be able to help sort of designate and determine where the high funding needs were, right? Where we could be of best support. And so it was another way, another opportunity for me to be able to give back in a different sort of way that we often don't think about when we're talking about youth and children and family services. So being able to support sort of, full circle in that way was what really appealed to me. And, when I came here to the city, I fell in love with the work. I was able to interact with colleagues that I had known in the space in Hartford for many, many years, but being able to interact with them in a different way where I could lend an additional level of support to them that I couldn't do without being a member of the team here at the City of Hartford.
Awesome. That makes great sense. That makes great sense. So, what do you find to be sort of like most meaningful about your position, about serving the youth? I know that right now there's a lot of conversation about youth crisis and, you know, youth who are disengaged, things that youth are facing, whether it be post-pandemic or just the times, we're in a really, really difficult kind of social and political time right now. Can you just talk to me a little bit about what it is that you find to be most meaningful in this already incredibly meaningful and impactful work that you do?
Sure, yes, absolutely. So there are many, many things that are meaningful in the work, right? So it is sort of difficult to prioritize, especially when you're talking about young people. But I will back up to say that folks that know me, my team here at the City of Hartford, my family know that I am an avid reader, and I always have been, right? One of my favorite books by one of my favorite authors is called The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. And in that, it is a very profound quote that I sort of live by in the professional arena, where he speaks about work. And he says that work is love made visible. So that is my driving force. I really look at what we do is imparting our love in whatever means necessary, whatever way is necessary to reach that young person, to reach that child, to reach that family. And through our, our service of work, we are then imparting our love onto them. And so I say that because our work is really grounded in that, right? And so when we're talking about meaning, I always drive home to that basic fundamental platform of are we doing what is best for the young people, right? So now when we talk about what is best for our young people and doing work on behalf of the young people, I think what becomes most meaningful is the ability to be able to hear from young people themselves as to what it is that they need, and then to be able to make systemic change around meeting those needs for those youth and those young people. Now, I say that because, as you mentioned, Director Taylor, there are certain, issues that rise to more of the crisis level issue. Obviously, youth violence is a huge part of the work that we do. There's been a lot of discussion recently with a recent report that has come out around opportunity youth. So, opportunity youth are those young people that are disconnected from school and or work. So we do focus a lot of our work on that, which is very, very meaningful and impactful, right? Getting young people back on the track that not where we necessarily think they should be, but where it is that they want to be. Where do they see the goals for themselves? And then how can we then help them to achieve those goals, right? I would say that that is the most meaningful work. So while all of the issues that we face are, I would say, extremely meaningful, it is difficult to prioritize one over the other, because what is meaningful to one young person is different to the next young person. And so our role is helping to identify that and to help them to meet the goal that they have for themselves. So, we do work all the way from prevention and early intervention all the way through, intervention and reentry and, sort of like crisis divertment. So all of the work is very important. And I just feel, every day that I get to live and walk sort of in that motto that I hold, in that, work is your love made visible. And I feel incredibly blessed to be able to do that.
That's a beautiful quote. I feel like that's something that I need to have on my wall.
I will send it to you.
Work is love made visible.
Correct. Work is love.
Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, and just, kudos to you for the work that you're doing in this particular time, for being at the city for a decade, seeing, families, youth, recreation through, you're talking about a global pandemic where people like disengagement just across the board, the things that families were facing. We heard a lot about some of like the most tragic things around domestic violence issues, some of the, the youth disengagement, chronic absenteeism, all of these sorts of things. But I think that it's also important for us in the city. Sometimes we approach things from a deficit, like, oh goodness, like we're looking to solve all the things, but also too, just even some of the phenomenal program that can happen at our rec center around like helping folks who want to be able to swim, right? Like, I know a number of people actually who have gone through this interesting pathway of being lifeguards at the city and who are now police officers. That needs to be studied. But even like creating these sorts of career paths, all of this critically important in terms of creating a city that is vibrant and where people have opportunities to self-actualize. And that's what I hear you saying. It's not just like the base level stuff. Oh, safety, it's a given, right? Like education, these are things that are given, but to really be able to support people in deciding who and how they want to be in the world is so important. So just kudos to you for the work that you're doing around not just the base level stuff, but the self-actualization pieces that are really going to help us to create a better city.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Because I mean, as you said, that should be our baseline, right? Like safety, education, housing, food security. All of our young people deserve that. No one deserves any less, right? And so while we put a lot of resources, time, energy, and effort into that, which is critically important, how do we then take that to the next level? Like you said, to serve young people, to them, for them to actualize what it is that they want to become and how it is that they want to give back to our community as well is so critically important. And I just want to add into, I know that you're you're giving me kudos. I appreciate it, but I'd be remiss if I didn't shout out our amazing staff here at the department, DFCYR, right? We have about 200 staff here in the department, and they are all incredible and flexible and just available to meet the needs of our youth, of our children, of our families, wherever they are. Roles shifted, and our staff actually during the pandemic became sort of like first responders, right? We had our early learning centers open. Our recreation staff served over 1 million meals every day to the community. We ran a COVID positive homeless shelter out of one of our community centers. And so, the work couldn't be done without all of the incredible staff. So I just want to lift up everyone in the hard work that they do every day to serve our children and youth.
Well, you know what they say. A leader is someone who holds space for the brilliance of others. And so I'm still going to be shouting you out and also your team. Appreciate just like how flexible and nimble and just people just doing what needs to be done when it needs to be done, right? Because this environment is shifting and you never know what is going to be required of you, particularly when you're working in municipal government, right?
Definitely, absolutely.
So Director Baldwin, I love the passion that you're bringing to the work. I love that your own personal experiences that you're bringing to the work. Can you tell me how your work is either making or contributing to Black history in the city of Hartford from your vantage point?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think that the work that we do at DFCYR, Families, Children, Youth, and Recreation, sort of has a direct impact. And I think that we're very fortunate in that our work directly, goes to support and serve our youth and our young people. So in our own way, we are helping to contribute to the future Black leaders here in Hartford, right? So if we are giving our children and youth, all of our young people, the opportunities that they need to succeed in whatever it is that they want to do, they will become our future Black leaders, right? And that in and of itself is how we continue to move along or continue to perpetuate our Black history amongst our community. So I feel really fortunate in being able to provide these services, right, to be able to do this work on behalf of our young people, because ultimately they are the ones that are going to be sitting in our seats and far beyond us. And they are the ones that are going to continue to make history for our community.
Mhm. I love that. Like I was thinking about Buzz Lightyear, infinity and beyond, and our seats and beyond and beyond. Definitely appreciate that. And a huge part, I believe, of celebrating Black history and highlighting Black history is that it undergirds Black futures, right? And not just Black futures, but the futures of all people. And so I love that you're picking up on that piece of your work. It's like, yeah, in our seats and beyond.
Yeah, and
Um,
I also, I'm sorry, can I just point out one other
Absolutely, you can.
Black History Month? Like, it's also really important to remember that, those that came before us were young people themselves when they were doing the work, right? So, when we talk about civil rights, and this is not that far removed, right? This is sort of like a generation or two before us. So, my grandfather in Philadelphia was an avid civil rights activist. He was actually personal friends with Dr. Martin Luther King. My mother met Dr. Martin Luther King. He came to their house when they were children. So I have this real, and like I said, my parents being my very first educator. So I feel like I was sort of always brought up in that culture, right, with that knowledge. But as I've grown and I've delved deeper into it and deeper into our history and what that means for me as a person, as a professional, as a parent, I see that it was really about our youth and young people that made those differences, right? The sit-ins, the bus drives, all of the marches. Those were youth. Those were young people doing the work. So, I think it's really important that we never lose sight of that and that we understand that there's nothing that our young people can't do if given the opportunity, right? And so I think that that is our role when we talk about Black history or history period, is making sure that our young people know that they can be empowered to do this work because so many before them did it and paved the path for them to be able to continue that.
Mm-mm-mm. Every time I do these interviews, somebody tries to make me cry. Y'all work so hard at it. Honestly, nothing that young people cannot do. And even thinking about the role of young people in civil rights movements or just movements in general, right? I appreciate you lifting that up and kind of pointing to that. And I love that we have a leader at the helm who believes so strongly about the power of young people, right? Because it's one thing to be a person who can manage all the processes and the policies and but to have that sort of like genuine belief, I believe that that's something that is critically important because it shows up in the way that you lead. It shows up in the way that you do programming and interact with others. And so um, just really happy to have you here at the City of Hartford.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you so much. Yes.
awesome.
Mhm.
So, Director Baldwin, can you tell me, Bloomfield baby? No, I'm kidding. What ties and connections do you have to Hartford, and like, why is Hartford meaningful to you? Do you have favorite places in Hartford? Do you have favorite like youth activities in Hartford? Would love to know about your ties to the city itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned, I've been working in Hartford for about 20 years now. I've been here at the city for going on 10 years this year now. So aside from working here, I have raised two children. I am a single parent, but I have raised two children here in Hartford. So these are my two children, big now. So Mason, my son is a sophomore in college. My daughter Taylor is a sophomore in high school. And so I think that, when you're raising your children in the community that you work and that you serve, it's really important that, you are tied and you have a grounding for that, right? You have to have a love if you are going to choose to, root and settle and live your life here. And especially if you're going to choose to raise your children, right? I am also a homeowner, a recent homeowner. This is a picture of my house. Recently was able to buy my own home a couple of years ago here in Hartford. I don't know if you can zoom in, you can see, I don't know if you're able to see that, but I'm holding up the sold sign. This was the day that I closed. So we are
I can
proud.
see it clear. What neighborhood do you mind me asking?
We live in the South End.
South
Yeah,
End. Awesome.
yeah, yeah. And so, I am a recent homeowner. I am also a landlord in the city of Hartford because I bought a multifamily house. And so I really believe in, Hartford. I believe in us as a community, right? I'm raising my children here. I am living here. I work here. I also worship in the city. So I am a member of Union Baptist Church. I have been a member there on Main Street since I was a very young child. And so, I'm active in my church community in Hartford. But, with all of these different investment and ties to the city of Hartford, like it's how can you not love it, right? So anyone that sort of follows me on social media or ever sees like my LinkedIn posts, I'll often put like I heart Hartford, hashtag I heart Hartford, right? I think that there's sort of like this inherent love that you have to have for a city that you're in, that you're working for and on behalf of, right? Because if you're not dedicated to, tied to, and loving the community that you're working for, then you can't, I don't think that you can, fully impart that onto the population it is that you're serving. So not saying that, you can't be committed if you're not working here, but there is sort of this additional level of investment when you have established the space that you are working in as also the space that you're living in. So again, like I feel very fortunate to be able to both live and work and to be tied in Hartford, not only through the workspace, but throughout all areas of my life.
Wow. Homeowner, mama, investment property owner. You Hartford through and through, right? It's funny because I was literally thinking this morning, I was like, goodness, I've done this work at corporations where, my colleagues were national, right? And I was like, wow, like this is very different because you are literally seeing your colleagues and constituents and the people that you serve in the grocery store.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
And so
the
like,
dog in the morning. Yeah.
or when you're walking the dog. So when I leave out, when I leave out and I'm walking around the corner to Carlos, I live in a silo hill, I'm walking around the corner. I'm like, I wonder who's seeing me right now.
Right.
At what's not my best. Right. But it definitely brings a different level of accountability for sure, right? Because you're working with and for your neighbors, and also a different level of investment
For sure.
because,
Oh, 100%, absolutely. And like you mentioned, neighbors. I have neighbors that have two young children. One of them actually utilized one of our early learning centers in the city. So I mean, it's real time. You're right there, right? I was taking out the garbage the other week, and
mhm.
one of our community providers, they were, riding around doing their case management, and then they saw me pulling out the garbage, so they stopped on the road, and we were talking, but I will say, as part of this work too, the one thing that I forgot to mention, Director Taylor, was that we hold in very, very high regard. It is extremely important, and my team knows this. But what's extremely important to us, probably the most important aspect of our work, are those relationships and connections to our community partners, to our providers, because those are the folks that are on the ground every single day working to make a difference with those young people that we serve. So, by virtue of working on behalf of the community, we as a department have been able to establish some really solid relationships with many, many amazing community providers throughout the city. Right. And so when you're working with and for them and beside them, that is, always, I like to reiterate that is a position that should be honored and respected, because those are the folks that are doing the services directly for the children and youth that we serve.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I don't think that any of the departments here at the city can do, the city's so big, right? So the partners are critically important to the work that any of us do. I feel very similarly about the Amistad Center and the Greater Hartford Arts Council and all the folks who are able to like, got an idea, we can fund it, uplift it, disseminate it, the whole nine. So
Do the work,
yeah,
right?
makes good sense. So Director Baldwin, I have sort of like one final question, and then you're welcome to share anything that you would like. Um, you talked a little bit about your personal passions because of your experiences as a young person. What would you say to someone who is watching this interview and they're saying, "Hmm, I feel disengaged from school, or I feel as though I don't necessarily have a career path, or I'm a high schooler and I hate going to high school, but I think that there's more that I could and should be doing." What like word of advice or nugget would you give to someone who is thinking about this type of career or thinking about, what's next for the future in terms of supporting you?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So I would say, like one word of advice that I would give would be, if you can think about what it is that drives you, what it is that motivates you, what is it that makes you want to open your eyes and keep going in the morning, to hold fast to that, right? And now it's okay as a young person, right? Like I don't think many of us knew kind of as young people what it is that we wanted to do. But there is always something internally that's driving you. And if there's a young person that's disconnected or that doesn't feel engaged or that wants to make a difference but doesn't necessarily know how to do that, I encourage them first and foremost to find a trusted adult that they can reach out to, right, to discuss this, to explore what it is that seed that's inside them that they want to grow and to flourish. If they don't have that trusted adult person, then I strongly encourage them to reach out to us here at DFCYR. This is part of the work that we do, right? So I have had young people that have had no place to go that have walked into our office and help to find them and connect them to what it is that they need to do, right? I've had young people that say, I've been, kicked out of school and I want to go back to school. Can I go back to school? So I think it's just about like understanding those that are around you in your community that are here to help you. So we are more than just sort of like the city, right? This entity. We are actually made up of real people. The team here also live, work, reside, raise their children here in Hartford as well. So we are here to help you to find out what it is that you want to do and to help you to set you on the path to be able to accomplish and achieve that. So, my lasting takeaway would be like, don't ever give up, even though sometimes we've all been in the space where we feel like we may want to give up. Don't ever give up because we need you, your city needs you, and your community and your world needs you. So every single person is a critically important piece to the puzzle. And we want to make sure that, every young person understands the piece that they are and how they fit into the bigger picture.
Definitely can appreciate that. And so if a young person is interested in reaching out or even, adults who are saying, I would like to be that caring adult that supports a young person, how could they get in contact with folks at DFCYR?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So a couple of ways, right? You can either go on to the city website and connect to our department that way, hartfordct.gov, and then under departments, you can find our department, Families, Children, Youth, and Recreation. You can also reach out to us via phone, 860-757-9595 is our office number. And yeah, absolutely. You can also come into City Hartford, City Hall directly. So we are on the third floor, room 305. We are open during business hours and we are open to the public, right? As all of City Hall is. So we encourage you to come in, to speak with us, to talk to us. And again, it's about helping to figure out where it is that you want to be, what it is that you want to do, and connecting you onto that path to make that become a reality. And that's what we're here for.
Wonderful. Director Baldwin, this has been a pleasure and a joy. I don't want to keep you from the critically important work that you are doing with our city's arguably most important resource, our young people.
Thank you.
Anything additional that you wanted to share before we close out?
Well, I just really wanted to thank you, Director Taylor, for doing this, to be able to, sort of uplift the voice and humanize all of us, right, for our community. I think that it's very important. So, I tell the team a lot of what we do, right? We're always so busy working and we're doing so much good work on behalf of our residents, but we're not the greatest at telling that story, right? So you allowing for this platform, for this space, I think is critically important for our residents, for our families, and for our children and youth. And so, I just hope that out of all of these series, people can see themselves in that, and sort of find some direction in that and know that we are here as city employees with a charge and a purpose and a work and a love to do what we need to do on behalf of all of our residents.
Beautifully stated. And it is my honor, pleasure, and joy to humanize the people in Hartford who are making Black history and history in general every day. So thank you so much for being a part of the series. Thank you so much for sharing all of your nuggets and words of wisdom. We are beyond honored to have someone at the helm who believes so deeply in youth and who is working so hard to secure the future of Hartford. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you to the folks who joined on Zoom today. We decided to do this live, which was like a new thing because we wanted for folks to be able to, maybe they're grabbing their sandwich, they're at their desk. They want to hear a little word about what's happening in the city and hear how the humans are really uplifting our city. So thank you so much to those of you all who took the time to join and to hear it out. And this recording will also be archived so it can be accessed at a later date. Thank you so much, Director Baldwin. It has been an honor.
Thank you very much. It's been my absolute pleasure. And thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you so much.